Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to for your final elective. Who had a great tea, coffee, some sort of beverage? Yeah, I'm feeling a degree of resentment towards you right now because my coffee is still coming, which is going to be just fabulous. But we're now having a look at this elective at mind health for parents. And this topic is all about helping us get our heads straight as parents because we need to. I've been married to Jennifer now for closing in on 25 years. We've got 3 gorgeous, fabulous kids, all of whom know exactly where the boundary line is, and all who know how to push it really hard. Yeah. I've got a 20-year-old, a 17, almost 18-year-old, and an almost 15-year-old as well. And so we've had our journey with parenting, and it's still going because it never quite ends. And the thing that I know that you'll also be very aware of is parenting isn't for the faint-hearted. Parenting isn't easy. We need all the help we can get in this area because our kids are smart. And they know how to get their way with us at times. You know, when I first thought about having a child, and my wife said, honey, it'd be great if we had a baby. And I thought, well, this will be lovely, and it'll be great, and we'll have this child in our life. Then at that point in my life, I thought, how hard could it be? That this is what was in my mind as to what parenting would look like. There would be me, there would be her, and there would be a very clean kid. Whereas, of course, I discovered that parenting was more like this. And I realized, I just was not prepared for having a child and for what it would mean. I did the antenatal classes, I studied, I learned about the pregnancy and what it's going to be like to have a child, but honestly, I had no idea. I would see people and talk with them, and they would say something like, oh, you're having your first, are you? And there'd be this kind of glint in their eye, where they would say, your life will never be the same again. I thought that was just something they were saying. I didn't realize how true they really were, just how much my life would be sort of turned on its head. And I remember, you know that you've become a dad when you are so sleep deprived, you've been organizing things with your wife, you finally get out of the house, you get off to wherever you need to go to some mall, some place, and as you're in there, what you see is an ad with a scantily clad woman draped across a bed, and what goes through your mind is, oh man, that bed looks so comfortable. And you start to see things differently. I remember after we had our first child and we were out in the buggy after we'd organized our kid out, and I would see a young couple holding hands, obviously in love, and I would realize how much I resented them. Because I thought, you just have no idea. Or we would go past cafes that we had frequented previously. But now as I looked in, now what seemed to be the case, well, I now noticed something I had never seen before. How close the tables were. Some might say strategically close. As if they're trying to say to people like me, we don't want your kind in here with your buggy and your noisy child just disturbing our clientele. You can go find some other place. What I realized here was that things would never quite be the same again. And what I hadn't realized was that when you became a parent, it also caused your IQ to drop. Because I would remember playing with one of my kids, and invariably after playing with them, we might settle down and we'd watch something like The Wiggles or Dora or some sort of program there. And then I would discover that actually, in the end, I was the only one watching this. My child had wandered off and was playing with something else. And to my shame, I knew I could turn this off. But I really wanted to know how this one ended. I mean, did Dora make it to the Magic Mountain or not? Things change when you become a parent. And so when people say to me, Richard, What do I need to know? What do I need to learn as a parent? How can I help myself in this? I'll say, look, generally there are two key things that you need to do. The first is you need to learn as much as you can. You can listen to as much as you can from other people, and that's great, and you can get all the techniques, the tools, the tips, and all of those sorts of things, because you're going to need them. The second thing that you can do to help you as a parent is get as mentally and emotionally healthy as you can get. Because the more mature you are internally, the more helpful you can be to your kids, the more resources that you can provide to them. And you just stop being a part of the problem with your kids. So in that way, one of the things that I teach people is that for us to get mind health, to get healthy as parents, I say, look, there are 4 key areas that are going to be useful to you in this. 4 key areas that are going to help you as parents. And we're going to run through them. These are sort of tools for your toolkit. These are techniques for your kite that you can put them in order to help you navigate being a parent and doing it well. Now, before I carry on, there's a really important question I need to ask you. Who here in the room has my coffee? Are you here with me? Can you come down the front, my friend? Because I don't want it to get cold. Wherever you are, just come and join us. But in this, the first thing that we need when it comes to parenting is we've got to get perspective. You see, when you have a look at an image like this, tell me, what's your automatic reaction as to who's carrying who? What would you say? She's carrying him. That's what it looks like. But in fact, if that was the case, then he's the one with the tights and the flowery shoes, and she's the one with the big chunky feet. Whereas in fact, if you have a look at it, she's wrapped around the other side of him. He's carrying her. But when we look at that, what we think, what we understand is that we always think that we see reality clearly when we don't. That we see reality through the lens of who we are. And we can often get things wildly wrong because we don't actually live in reality in many ways. We live in our perception of reality. And our perception can help us or it can harm us. And as you're running late and you're trying to bundle up the kids and get them into the car, you're saying, come on kids, come on, we're running late, we've got to get going. And then one of the kids says, I need to do poos. And another one goes, I can't find my shoes. And another one goes, Jimmy's got chewing gum in his hair. And how do you respond? Oh, for goodness sake, kids, how hard is it for you to organize yourself? I mean, I've got to do all this stuff, and all you had to do was get yourself organized. I mean, couldn't you have gone to the toilet beforehand? Surely you would have found your shoes by now, and who gave chewing gum to Jimmy in the first place? That's called catastrophizing. I don't know if it's familiar to you. But it's where we load up with way too much importance, what really doesn't have that degree of importance. And so in that, one of the things that I'll say to people is, in a year from now, how important will this really be? In a year from now, how much will this really matter? Because oftentimes we're giving too much importance to things that just don't matter. I had an older couple who came to me and said, that things weren't going well for them. And I said, oh, why is that? They said, well, see, our kids have left home. And we're not some of those empty nester kids where we were worried about the kids leaving home. We were looking forward to this. We were thinking we're going to get our life back. I thought, okay, so what's the problem? They said, well, something's happened with one of the families, and one of the families is coming back and they're living with us. And so here we go. This is another interruption to our life. So I asked them this question. I said, so tell me, why is it good to be you facing this? Now, of course, their first response is, well, it's not. I said, yeah, no, but I want you to think it through. Why is it good to be you facing this? And they thought it through and they said, well, I guess it's good because, it means that we've got a good relationship with our kids and they know that they can come home. Yeah, okay, anything else? They said, well, I guess it's good because we haven't sold our home and so we've still got a home that's large enough to accommodate our kids and look after our kids. Yeah, what else? They said, well, when we think about it, we always wanted to have children. Our kids are really important to us. And so this, I guess, is just a side effect of us having kids, and we want to have these kids in our life. And I said, and when you say that, when you understand that, tell me, what changes for you? And they went, what I think we're getting is that this isn't an interruption to our life. This is our life. And with that, their perspective changed and they more wholeheartedly welcomed the kids, the family, back into their home. And they were no longer winding themselves up. So one warped lens is catastrophizing. Another one here is we personalize. That is, you've fallen into the trap of personalizing where everything seems to be about you. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you're standing with somebody else and a third person gives the other person a compliment. Hey mate, you were great at that. You did this job really well. And you might be standing there thinking, what about me? Am I chopped liver? That would be an expression of you personalizing it, where you're assuming that something that's being said is all about you. Now, at times we can get caught up in believing that our children are purely an expression of who I am and how good I am as a parent. And so we take the way that they are, the way that they behave, really personally, as if it says something about who I am. And this is where children having a core meltdown, like in a supermarket or something like that, is a core and main cause of parental shame and parental expenditure. Oh, for goodness sake, just have the packet of chips, take the lollipops, just keep quiet, you're making me look bad. And one of the things that we need to be able to do is separate ourselves from the child. We are the parent, we're responsible for parenting, but their behavior, the way they are, is about them and how they're being right now. It isn't about us. Because if we take it too personally, we will usually overreact to the way they're being. I remember being out at different social functions or church groups or something like that, and invariably one of my kids, when they were younger, would not have taken well to the fact that I had said no to them, or that we had to leave, or that they couldn't have another piece of chocolate cake, or whatever it may be. And so they would go and have a core meltdown in the corner somewhere. And people would come to me and go, are they okay? To which I would respond, yeah, no, they're fine. They've just discovered a mood they're enjoying. But this was about them. And I can leave them to experience their emotional state. I didn't feel like I had to rescue them out of that. I didn't feel like it said something about me. The third warped lens here that we can get into is an all or nothing warped lens. And this is where you've got into an all or nothing mindset, where it has to be all one way or it feels like it's nothing. The house has to be completely tidy or it feels like it's a pigsty. I have to achieve straight A's or it feels like I'm failing. It has to be everything, otherwise I feel like I'm not good enough. And my friend, one of the things that you'll discover with parenting, if you don't know already, is with parenting, you never do it perfectly. It's never finished. And even when you feel like you're succeeding in one area, there'll be another area where you feel like you're not. I remember with each of our 3 children, my wife was brilliant at toilet training them. And so she got each of our kids dry during the day in undies before they were 2. Now that makes you look great, and we can say, how good are we? But night times were a completely different story. Some of our kids struggled with remaining dry at night until they were 7 or 8. And what that meant was we learned a whole lot around bedwetting. We learned about the hormone that's needed to dry a child up, to dry a person up. We learned about the influence of behavioral issues or deep sleepers and signals that wake a child up. We learned about a whole lot of things. But you see, one of the things that we never did as a couple is, even though it was frustrating at times, we never took that personally as if it's all bad now. What we would often comfort ourselves in is, look, this is just the issue for now. This is just the next developmental phase. And each time we get through one developmental phase, there seems like another developmental phase. And one of the things that we would reassure ourselves was say, well, they won't be doing this when they're 21. And do you know what? If they are, it's their responsibility now. We don't have to deal with it anymore. So we've got to be able to get perspective. We've got to be able to work on our warped lenses that we look through so that we're not catastrophizing and loading things up with way too much meaning. We're not personalizing it and making it feel like it's all about me, and nor are we believing that it all has to be perfect for me to be okay. So get perspective so you don't lose your grip is the first of the mind health for parents that we put in our toolkit, in our kitty, so that we're not making minor things monumental, but we can make the monumental things far more manageable. The second thing that we need to do as parents is we've got to own our zone. We've got to become emotionally resilient in this. And so that, one of the things that I found is I knew I was a smart, intelligent, in charge, in control man. And then I had children. And what we find with our kids is our kids can find the sore spots in us. The kids can push our buttons, get under our skin faster than anybody else. And what I found is that our kids, in many ways, are God's invitation to us to grow up. I wish you would find a different way, but that seems to be one of the ways he's using. That in this, we need them to help us to find out where we still need to grow up. And in this, it's recognizing, like I mentioned in the previous elective, if you were here for that, we've got to get this one key truth. No one can make us feel a certain way. Because no one is putting an emotion in us. It comes from within us. So we're not going to blame the other person for how we feel. We're going to take ownership over what's in us. Otherwise, we're going to move into a reactive mindset. Otherwise, we're going to move into a victim-based mindset rather than an overcomer's mindset. Now, I'll take this a bit further than what I did in the previous session. You see, in this, one of the things that we find is that what is this button that gets pushed in us? What gets triggered in us, which causes us to blame the other person for how we feel, to justify our behavior, and to wait for the other person to change? It looks a bit like this. That inside of who we are, there is a primary feeling that can get triggered at times. And this is what we call our emotional allergy. Now, the emotional allergy is the feeling that you would hate to feel dominated, controlled, inadequate, a failure, displaced, not listened to, disrespected. There's something in there that you just don't like. And because your brain hates that feeling so much and it feels like you're in danger, it moves to a secondary emotion really quickly. It puts you into a fight, flight, or freeze response. Have you heard of that before, the fight, flight, freeze? Yeah. See, my friends, let me ask you, what would be a fight emotion? What do you think? Anger. What would be a flight emotion? It's anxiety. And because this is usually the tricky one, what would be a freeze emotion? It's depression. You see, your brain is going to reach for one of these three really quickly in order to protect you from a feeling you don't want to feel. Because what does anger do? Anger gives me power so that you don't make me feel a way I just don't want to feel. Anger gives me a sense of power to push back. And so what anger says in my head is this won't happen. Now, it can be a hot anger or it could be a cold, seething anger, but it feels like it's empowering me. Anxiety feels like it's going to protect me because anxiety feels like it puts you on high alert. So this horrible feeling that you don't want to feel, well, if I'm on alert enough, if I'm careful enough, if I think about it enough, then this bad feeling won't happen. Anxiety says, danger, danger, this feeling that you don't want to feel, it's going to happen. So anxiety says, this might happen. You better be careful. And depression wants to numb you because it's all too hard. And what depression says is, this is happening. There's just nothing I can do about it. And so with that, we move into this reactive stage and we'll reach for anger, anxiety, or depression in order to protect us from a feeling that we don't want to feel. But whatever you tell yourself simply does one key thing. It's simply there to justify the behavior that's about to come from you. Now, my friends, let me ask you, not you, but the friends you came with, when they overreact or underfunction, what's some of the kinds of behaviors that we might see in the home when someone is overreacting or underfunctioning? Just call it out in a big voice. What do you reckon? Yelling? Great. What else? Swearing? Yep. Withdrawing, yelling, swearing, withdrawing. Withdrawing, blaming. Great. Throwing, yep. What else? What's that, slamming? Yeah, communicate with doors and furniture. Why use words? Kaboom! Yeah, silence. And sometimes it can be a very loud silence. Great. What else? Mocking, leaving. Yep. What? Sighing. Yeah, sighing and sulking. What's that? Miss it. Controlling, controlling behavior. See, let me just check. Is the sort of thing that you do up here on the board, because I don't want you to feel like you're missing out. But you see, when we get triggered, this is the dynamic that happens. We have our emotional allergy, we reach for a secondary emotion, we justify it in our brain, and then we behave in ways that feel like it's fair enough, it's justifiable. Ways that actually are unhelpful, hurtful, or even harmful to others. But I want you to think about an interaction in your own home, and can you notice when this happens for you? It just triggers. And of course, we can see it in our kids as well, when this happens for them as well. And this is what moves us into a reactive mindset, a victim mindset. And of course, this is the sore point that causes us to react. And this is why we blame the other person, we justify, and we wait for them to change. But my friends, let me ask you, when you behave in any of these kinds of ways, guess how the other person now feels? They now feel like they are your victim. And they know to blame you, to justify their behavior, and to wait for you to change. But we've got to get ourselves where we're responsible for how we're feeling, where we don't allow this feeling to bully us into behaving in hurtful ways. We need to communicate constructively in this, where in fact we only use the language that is helpful. Because if, as I say to people, in the cold light of day, with what you've got there on the board, if it's not constructive to the relationship, It's never justified. So we've got to find different ways of communicating with our kids that's constructive, that's healthy. And one of the ways to do that, when I'll say to people, if you imagine that horrible feeling inside that you don't want to feel when you get into arguments with your kids or into interactions, if we scooped that horrible feeling out of you, tell me, if we put you in your most mature adult mindset, how would you respond differently? And I'll often find people know. It's the feeling, the allergy that bullies you into unhelpful behavior. And one of the most loving things you can do is stand up to that horrible feeling inside of you and not allow it to bully you into behaving in ways that's unloving, hurtful, and harmful to your kids or to your spouse or to anybody else. And of course, the final one there is we initiate. We initiate to address the issue that has come up between us. We apologize for wherever there's any kernel of truth that anything that I have done was unhelpful in the relationship, so that we can start to be a part of the solution and stop being a part of the problem, so that we can stop inflaming the situation and so that we can start to resolve the situation. So one of the second things we've got to be able to do is own our zone emotionally, as opposed to blame other people for how we're feeling. We're not necessarily feeling this way at all. You know, I remember once when my daughter, my oldest, was 3 years old, and we were running late for something. And my job, my responsibility was to get her shoes on so that we could get in the car and go off. And she was playing that little game that 3-year-olds like to play, that as Dad puts one shoe on, she would flick it off with her other foot. And so I'd get the other one and so she'd flick it off because she did not want her shoes on. And in this, I'm just getting so frustrated. And I'm thinking, oh, you're making me so angry. Why can't we just put these shoes on and get out? And the voice in my head said, Richard, she's not making you angry. You're getting angry all by yourself. To which I said to the voice in my head, oh, shut up, what would you know? But I thought, you know what, you're right. So how do I want to feel is an incredibly important question. I said, well, actually, the way I want to feel right now is I want to feel calm, in control, get her shoes on, and know that it's actually not a big deal if we run late. So, all right, I went with that, and I managed to be much calmer and get her shoes on. And she probably kicked them off in the car, and I can't even remember what it was that I was so worked up about, because it really wasn't that important. So we've got to own our zone emotionally and make sure we're operating out of a responsive and overcomer's mindset and not blaming others, not blaming our kids for how we feel. The next one here, the third thing that we've got to do is we've got to become proactive. We've got to think strategically with our kids. Because you see, the thing that I find is that our kids are smart. And if you don't own your zone emotionally, if you can't be responsive, if you're reactive, you cannot be proactive, because they will keep pulling your chain. You know, that situation where it might be that one of the kids says, hey, can I have this? And you go, no, you can't have that. Oh, please. No, I've said no, you can't have that. Oh, please. No, I've said no. I want you to hear me. No, I'm not changing my mind. Oh, please. All right, you can have it. Are you happy? Yes, I am. Thanks so much. I know that if I turn this knob, pull this handle, ching, 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 mum or dad delivers the goods. They know how to work us. They know how to work the system. And so in this, we've got to become a whole lot more smarter, but you can only do that if you're first of all owning your zone emotionally. And you know, when it comes to doing things strategically, you know, there can be a number of things that can be quite useful here. And they're not necessarily rocket science, that you just need to give some energy, some time to it. Because sometimes it's simply a matter of getting yourself organized. I'll meet many families where they'll have issue of trying to get out the door with the kids, and the same sort of hoo-ha and Catastrophizing happens every single time. And so it's a simple thing where I'll say to them, so when you think about when you need to get out of the house, I also want you to imagine how long is it going to take you to get everything organized so that you can work backwards from that time. So when you think about when you need to leave, think about how long it's going to take you to get out, and now double it. And then put that into place so that you never, to the degree that you can, do things from a rushed position. And so sometimes that's simply about getting yourself organized so that you're not getting yourself stressed out about what's going on. Another thing that helps us to be strategic in this is managing expectations. Managing the expectations of your children so they know what is expected of them. So when we go out and we're going to go to the shopping center and we're going to get some food, we're not going to buy any lollies, any chips, any soft drink. We're not going to buy things. So if you were to ask me at that point, could you have some of that? What would be the answer? Well, the answer's no. That's right. When we come home, we will have something to eat or we'll have some lunch at a different point. So they're clear about what's expected. Or I'll have, when my kids would go over, they'll say, hey, can I go over and play at so-and-so's house? Yes, you can, but so long as you know that when I tell you we got it, time to pack up, it's 5 minutes to go, you will need to pack up at that point. So let me just clarify it with you. When I say it's time to go, what's going to be your response? I'm going to pack up. That's right. And at times when I've been with my kids and we've been in that space and I've said, right, it's time to go home. And if one of the kids has said, oh, but I don't want to go home, I'm having so much fun, I'll say to them, the way you leave now will determine whether I say you can come back here again or I say no. So you show me whether you want me to say yes, you can come back, or no, you don't. I'll just watch what you do. I'll watch your behavior here. So if the expectations aren't managed, then the child will hope that they can get away with anything and everything because they're just rolling with what feels good in the moment. And with our kids at times, we have to communicate differently. You know, when our child says to us, oh, can I have this? And you say no. And then they say, oh, please. At that point, I learned rather than carrying on the conversation, that I would simply respond to my child by saying, I've already given you the answer. Can you remember what it is? And if they went, no, so, well, let me tell you again. So in that, I might say, you've already had the answer to that, and my answer isn't changing. I'm not engaging in a conversation or an argument here. One of the key things is to step out of a power struggle with your child. You, as a grown man in a power struggle with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, yeah, it ain't pretty. And so what we want to do is we want to communicate differently. And sometimes, like I'll say to them, is I'll step out and I'll say, I'll watch your behavior, and your behavior will tell me what you want me to do. Like I remember when one of my kids was 9 years old and she's watching TV. I mean, this is a while ago. This is when children actually watched TV that had ads and everything. Now everything's just streamed. And she's watching TV, she's watching a program or a movie or something like that. And she said, and I go to her and I say, honey, in that next ad, I want you to have a shower. She goes, oh, I don't want to have a shower tonight. Can I have a shower tomorrow? I said, no, I want you to have a shower tonight. Oh, but I don't want to have a shower tonight. I said, no, I want you to have a shower tonight. Oh, I'm not having a shower tonight. I said, if you go and have a shower now, that's telling me that you want to watch the end of the movie. If you don't have a shower now, that's telling me that you want me to finish, turn the TV off, and put you to bed straight away. Oh, that's not fair. No, I'm just going to go into the kitchen now. I'm just going to watch your behavior, and I'll let your behavior tell me what you want me to do. Oh, she says. And I go into the kitchen, and the program gets to an ad, and she's sort of wrestling and shaking. She shoots off and has the fastest shower that a child can have and shoots back and just sits there. And no one has to say a word. And nor do we. We let the consequences of her own behavior wrestle with her, not me. And then at other times with my kids, I also realizing that my kids were smart and I had to work with them, because what I would find is, like, I might ask them to do something, but as they were glued on the TV, and I'd say, can you do this? Can you get your shoes on? Can you get ready? Yeah. They'll say, yeah, no, that's fine. And then I'd come back. Why haven't you got your shoes on? What? You never asked us that. I did, right now. No, I didn't. And what I discovered is children listen with their eyes. If you don't have their visual attention, you don't have them. Now, to be fair, that's also true of husbands, isn't it? And so I would make sure that we'd have eye contact, look at me, and would have that discussion. And then, at times, I would notice that even though I was speaking to them with eye contact, they would say, oh, I didn't realize you meant that. So I would then have to get eye contact, tell them what I expected, and say, now I want you to tell me what you've just heard. So I'm clear, we're all clear about what's expected, because otherwise my kids would just know how to play the game. So we've got to be proactive and be strategic. And the final one here is we've got to be topped up. We can't go hungry. You see, in this, when you are emotionally drained, as the old saying goes, when the river runs low, the rocks begin to show. And it just means that you're unable to handle things well and to handle things constructively. You know, it's like when you come home late and you're tired and you're hungry. You know, what's your emotional state like? You're often hangry, really, aren't you? And so what we need is we need things that are going to top up our water level. What replenishes you? So for you and for your spouse, it's working out and understanding what actually tops us up. And in this, it's distinguishing from what entertains you to what actually recreates you. And there's a huge difference. You know, for me, what entertains me, I love movies, I love TV programs, to the point where I realized that the first time I did a long-haul flight, I thought, this is perfect, this is brilliant. You're going to lock me into a seat for 12 hours and I can watch endless movie and TV and you're going to bring me food and drink. I mean, how good is this? And then by the time I got through about the third movie, I was just thinking, oh, for goodness sake, kill me now. How much longer have we got to do this? Because it entertained me, it didn't recreate me. You know what recreates me? Early morning walks with my God. What recreates me is being able to journey and drive on long distances and have a good chat with my wife. What recreates me when I've done travel is just being still and letting my soul catch up with my body. And you see, my friends, we've got to find the things that recreate us more than entertain us, so that we can love and serve others better. Amen. And we'll need to do that for ourselves, and we'll need to create the space for our spouse in order for her to also be topped up. Because who wants a grumpy wife? No one. So we want to help her to be replenished as well. And so, my friends, in this, these four things here of we want to get perspective, we need to own our zone emotionally, we need to be proactive and strategic, and we need to top ourselves up to help our mind health so that we might parent well and parent better. Now that's me for the moment. I'm going to pause me there and throw it back to you. So just in your seats, have a quick chat with the people around you, beside you. What did you take from what I just shared with you? What was useful to you? Have a chat on this, and then I'll call you back and we'll do a Q&A.
Rather than just saying this person has a problem, it's think of it as an allergy, and then therefore there's a natural self-defense.
Yeah.
Even if the cause of the allergy is rooted in some other aspect of their life.
That's right. Oh, that's good. Yeah, and I like the imagery of allergy because it's like an allergic reaction. We can have varying degrees of allergic reaction. And that allergy, we move into a protection of it, but what's behind the allergy is a need that we have that doesn't feel met. Yeah. Hello. Oh, we need the mic down here? We on? Go for it.
Yeah, I'm really liking how you've broken it down into the anger and anxiety and depression, which then leads to how we talk to ourselves
Yeah.
and then what we're hiding from. I myself suffer with depression and anxiety, and yeah, I'm a solo dad, so
Yeah.
as my son steps into his adolescence, I'm
Right.
addressing these. But I'm also going to say thank you because there's a lot of good qualities in my parenting through my natural instinct that
Great.
I
Great.
can
Well, good on you, matey.
self-check and
Yeah, and with the allergy, it's recognizing that anger, anxiety, and depression aren't the problem, they're our solution. And that what we need to understand is that they are usually a secondary emotion and there's something else going on. So we need to peel it back and look below the surface of that strong emotion to find out what's going on underneath. Cool. Someone else over there?
So I'm not actually a parent yet, but I do after school care 3 days a week, and I can totally associate with the power struggle thing. And I'm just curious. I know that it's pride in one sense, but what's the feeling I don't want? Is it sort of the child not submitting to what I want to do? What would you describe that? 'Cause-
Possibly. And that's where each person may be slightly differently. See, pride is simply a protection mechanism. Pride is is an expression often out of my anger that I don't want to feel a certain way, in the sense of the unhealthy version of pride. And so when you think about it, now don't answer this is just a technique. When you think about that situation when you're with those kids and you notice yourself getting worked up, if we were to peel back your pride, if we were to peel back your anger, what's the feeling underneath that you would hate to feel, that just stings? How would you label it? Now, it might be disrespected, out of control, powerless, inadequate, a failure. Because, here's a little child that you should be able to get them to do what you want. And when you can't, that sense of powerlessness and that sense of, I just feel inadequate, I've got nothing else to give you, can cause the pride, the anger to rise up because that stings too much. But ask yourself, when I peel it back, what's the feeling underneath that I would hate to feel? How would I label it? Cool. Hello.
Hi, Richard. I really like how you talk about communicating differently. So you ask the child to repeat what you expect of them,
Yeah.
and let them know clearly what those consequences are if they don't,
Yeah.
listen to
Yeah.
what you said, and getting them to repeat what you want. What the understanding of what you just told them is.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
getting that eye contact thing where, mute the TV or turn off the telly when you're talking to them, getting that understanding face to face that you got their full attention.
Totally. Yeah.
But I've got a question. What if the child screams, cries non-stop, but doesn't you ask them what's going on or, what's up or whatever, and they don't say anything? I find myself panicking or getting frustrated when that happens.
Sure. Well, I would need to know more information because the scream, the cry, is it a state of distress that I'm really upset cry? Is it a state of anger, resistance that I don't want to do what you're saying? So in that, it would be a matter of working out which way it's coming from. But generally speaking, what it is, it's about reassuring the child, you're obviously really upset right now, that something's going on, that when you're ready to tell me, I want to know. I mean, when our kids would get wound up and would have a loud, screamy kind of noise, and it was because they were not liking what we said. I said, you can yell as much as you like, you're just not going to do it here. Could you do that in your bedroom, please? So that was the anger resistance. But if it was a crying in a distressed state, because something's going on with them, then I would sit quietly with them and just say, this is really hard for you. There's a lot going on. And just sit until they begin to calm down. Ask them at that point, what was going on for you? What did that feel like you know, what words would you use? And then I'll try to understand it from that point of view. So it really depends on which direction. Hello, who's got the mic?
Yep. Richard, I'm just sitting here being a sponge, and I've just got a question for you. What are some of the things that you've learned in the few years that you could advise fathers now that sort of hit you that we could benefit from?
What you mean more than what I've just explained?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. If there's one thing that you can say that you've left out or you haven't said, what would that be?
One thing that I've left out that I would give you is sit in your child's world. You know, one of the things that I find at times is we can get so busy in life, we fail to actually engage with our kids. And our kids aren't necessarily communicative. Hey, honey, how was your day? Yeah, fine. So we go, okay, well, that's about it. But just being in your child's world and understanding what's important to them, I think is really, really important. And, you know, one of the things that I also found, like at times it would say, yeah, our kids just don't talk to us. And then I discovered they do. They just do it at a really inconvenient time. Like, you know, I'd be, you know, honey, how was your day? What's at school? Fine. No, it's all good. And then we'd finally sit down with my wife. We might want to watch something together where it's just our time. And then a child would come in, hi, blah, 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 sitting down. We're just thinking, you know, we're trying to watch something here. But what I realized was they were trying to break into our world. They were now ready to talk. So at times our kids do talk. They just don't talk at the times we want them to. And being open and aware when they're reaching out. So get into their worlds more and just be in their world more. That's it. Thank you. You've been a lovely audience. Thanks, everyone. And enjoy the final session that we're about to have.